Banshees of Inisherin is a movie that when I left it, I was left with one question. The feck did I just watch? Let's talk about why. Hey guys, I'm Carl. Welcome to my movie film show. Feel free to subscribe down below if you would like to, but today we're here to talk about a brand new Irish movie called The Banshees of Inisherin. The movie is by director Martin McDonagh, who's made movies like In Bruges and more recently 3 Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri. Both very good movies. He's also made 7 Psychopaths, but we don't talk about that one. The movie stars Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson and some well-known other Irish actors. But the thing about this movie, going into it, I knew there was a lot of buzz about it. There's talk about Oscars for this movie, for an Irish movie. There's talk about Oscars for Colin Farrell. How weird is that? And also Barry Keoghan's in it, and he plays the Joker in the next Batman movie. So the movie is about a man who wakes up one day and finds out that his best friend just doesn't want to be friends with him anymore. Sounds like an interestingly shit concept. Now, this movie is set in 1923 in the middle of the Irish Civil War on a fictional island off the coast of Ireland. This island does not exist. And this movie has a certain charm to it, but it's the performances that carry the movie forward. Brendan Gleeson is very good in his role, but he's just playing a grumpy old man. Now, this movie, it had a lot of jokes. It had a lot of good laughs in it. There were certain points in the movie that had the entire movie theater laughing out loud. There is some hilarious points within the movie. And the thing with this movie is there's a really good intrigue to it because you're trying to figure out all the way along is what's going on here. Why doesn't his friend want to be friends with him? It sounds so silly when you break it down like that. It sounds so stupid. But the whole thing of why is Brendan Gleeson suddenly shunning Colin Farrell and nobody else? It's only Colin Farrell. He clearly states he doesn't have a problem with him. He hasn't done anything to him. He hasn't said anything to him. So you're left wondering what's going on. My initial thought was perhaps Brendan Gleeson was dying and he simply wanted to push his best friend away so his best friend wouldn't feel as sad when he does die. I don't think that was the case. To be honest with you, I watched the movie and at the end of it, I still wasn't sure what happened. So, yeah. The thing that lets the movie down is the lack of payoff at the end. Regardless of what you infer from the ending, there is a serious lack of payoff right there. It's like they just chose to just randomly end the movie. The movie's 2 hours long. And what I will say is the pacing is fantastic. It goes by at an electric pace. You don't even notice the time whizzing by because you're constantly guessing what's going to happen next. It does have a lot of weirdness to it. At one point in the movie, Brendan Gleeson's character says to Colin Farrell, "If you speak to me again, I'm going to cut off one of my own fingers." And then later on, spoiler alert, he does. That whole part was quite strange. I'm going to get into a few spoilers here, so if you haven't seen the movie, I'd suggest going away, checking out the movie, and then coming back and telling me what you thought of the movie in the comment section below. But now we're going to talk about some spoilers, because I want to get into the part where he's cutting off his own fingers. Now, they don't show it. It's not quite a horror movie, but even the whole thing of him cutting off his fingers so your man won't talk to him, and then ultimately cutting off all of his fingers, biting off his nose to spite his face, as they say. It made no sense. Why would he cut off his own fingers? What? And that's kind of my whole thought process through the movie is, what's happening? Why is this, what? Now, I will get the movie its due. It's unique. And I've been screaming out all the time for unique, original movies. It's not a reboot. It's not a remake. It deserves praise for that. Barry Keoghan, for me, was a standout performer in it. He's the one that constantly had me laughing all the way through. He's a really strong actor. And I think his performance in this is the one that should be getting the most praise, not necessarily Colin Farrell. But while the movie had its jokes and the pacing was good and there was a lot of intrigue to it, I just left the movie theater kind of flabbergasted because I wasn't really sure what to think of the movie. It's a movie that definitely had me scratching my head when I was leaving. But the weird thing is, on Rotten Tomatoes, the critics score is around 97% and the audience score is around 94% at the time of recording. And every other critic I've seen has been saying Oscar nominee and potential Oscars for this movie, and Colin Farrell's going to win an Oscar for his performance, and I just don't get it. Why? There's nothing special about this movie. Overall, the story was a story to nothing because it doesn't get a proper payoff. By comparison to some of the movies I've seen this year, I don't see how this one holds a candle to most of the movies I've seen this year. It's not even Martin McDonagh's best movie. What am I missing here? I'm really going to need help in the comment section below to let me know what I missed in this movie. I've seen Colin Farrell better in other movies. I've seen Brendan Gleeson better in other movies. The story had a lot of ups and downs, but as I mentioned a few times, there's no payoff at the end. Nothing gets resolved. There's no character growth. And even the initial concept, funny as it may sound, one friend waking up one day and deciding he doesn't want to be friends with the other guy. It's an idiotic concept. Overall, the story, in my opinion, is weak. It's carried heavily by good performances from the actors. But if this is the standard we're setting for Oscar-winning movies, man, anything can win an Oscar nowadays. I do think part of the buzz around this movie is the whole romanticism of Ireland. I'm not saying that's bad in this movie, certainly not in the way something like Wild Mountain Thyme was, but I do think there's a little bit of romanticism that makes people forgive certain parts of this movie. And then you've got something that's also a big problem, in my opinion, in terms of movie criticism. If you go through and you read a lot of the big reviews here on IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes or even some of the big film websites, you'll see the same sentences being said about the movie. It's just wild how many people have the exact same opinion of one movie. Not that they all like it, they all have the exact same wording of their opinion of a movie. It's very strange. But getting back to it, ultimately we come down to a rating out of 10, as we always do for every movie, this time for the Banshees of Inisherin. Overall, the movie had its good points. It was intriguing all the way through. Some of the jokes were pretty damn funny, some of the performances were pretty good, but ultimately I feel the ending massively lets the movie down. I don't get the Oscar buzz at all, and for me, it's a 6 out of 10 movie. It's decent. It's not great. You know the funny thing with this movie? When I was watching this movie, I noticed a lot of visual similarities to Wild Mountain Thyme, one of the worst Irish movies I've ever seen if you haven't seen it. Wild Mountain Thyme was set in modern day, whereas the Banshees of Inisherin is set 100 years in the past. And yet both movies have the same visual style: donkeys in the house, old-fashioned clothing, candle lighting in houses, no technology, all that sort of stuff. And if you want to see why you shouldn't watch Wild Mountain Thyme, or if you just want to have a laugh about Wild Mountain Thyme, check out this review right over here of that movie I did a long time ago. And if you've already seen that one, I'd really appreciate if you check out this video right over here.